lights are still on. I don't know when they're supposed to be turned off or whatever. Our district voted to have them shut down 18 to 16 was the vote. So if you know anything more about that, when we can expect that to happen or whatever. The other one is the Chrome 6. Is there any chance that that might get overturned back from, it was 20, now it's 10? We're over the limit. Is there a chance that that could be overturned in the near future? He's shaking his head no.
It's already become law effective July 1.
Okay. I don't know if you guys, if the RCSD takes care of it, but the street sweeper? No, we don't take care of that either.
No.
Because we haven't seen a street sweeper on our street, or in our area for probably a couple of years.
County service area is 63.5.
I don't know exactly which one it is, but only the developments that voted it in get
Voted the street sweeper in?
right. When your housing development was established, it was put on then. If the people that bought those homes, they chose to do it, but the developer is the one that put it on there. Some developers did, some developers didn't.
He must have did, because he was in our tract a couple of times.
Probably are.
Steve, he used to come down our street.
The explanation on a county service area, they're not forever, and if there has to be an increase to the county service area, they have to notice the people that are affected, and they get an opportunity to voice and vote as to whether or not they want to pay the increase. If they don't, then it's discontinued. And it could have been because of that. I don't know. It belongs to the county of Kern. Actually, that they're the people that you should talk to, and the agency to talk to the department is engineering and survey services handle the county service areas.
Just another item that we're not getting our share of. My reason for that is you see in the gutters, you see a lot of collected debris, and the people that are watering, then the water backs up, and then the mosquitoes. That's the big deal there on that. And the last item was there was an article in the paper the other day about cockroaches, especially down in Lancaster and Palmdale. It says they found up to Avenue D. Well, they're following the sewer trunk line to get up to the sewage treatment plant, I'm sure, because of the water. And is there anything that you guys are doing, like to maybe, they said they would some kind of boric solution powder on the manhole covers or whatever to keep them under control or whatever. Just an item.
Rick, do you know anything about what you're doing down there in regard to cockroaches?
Basically, if your cockroaches, we can probably look at getting a company that actually specializes in spraying sewer homes for cockroaches. There's several companies. I can probably get a name for you.
We've done it several times in Rosamond, in various areas that might have an unusual amount of cockroaches, and they feel that it's coming out of the system. We have done something to do that. I don't know on a large scale how much we're getting infested with locally. I do know it's a problem in the Lancaster Palmdale area, but we haven't had complaints of it as of yet.
Right, they're probably not coming through the open desert. You don't have a connector between the plants, so that's good. Just an item that I thought I'd bring up.
One that talked about quizzes, tests, and exams. And I forget the word, but there's actually a phobia that you can develop, and lots of people have in a relationship to taking tests. And I observed that at 35 years of teaching some students who are reading all the material, just couldn't take a test. I changed all of mine to quizzes. A quiz, not a test. The way it goes is a quiz is not as significant, a test is a little bit more significant. Exam scares the wits out of you, okay? And we had a man here who took an exam and passed it, and I think he needs applause and needs recognition from us as a board. And it's in his report, so he's probably going to talk about it. But you want to bring it up right now and tell us how you felt going into that exam.
Trying to study for an exam with that covers government's legal requirements, policy, ethics, strategic planning, and public finance, to name a few, and the various subcommittees of each was scary because it was an exam.
Does anybody know what the phobia is? I know there's a word for it, but I forgot it. Phobia of taking exams.
Well, I have the phobia. And what I did in this is I needed to study because the laws have changed over time, and my schedule just didn't lend me enough time to sit down and study. So I spent a 4-hour block of time one Saturday morning studying, and that helped. But when I finished studying that one subcategory, I looked and I had about 50 more subcategories to do, and I did that one in 4 hours, and I hurried through that. So when I went to the General Manager's Summit, that's when I was scheduled to take this exam, and the exam was the certification for Special District Administrator, and I was particularly concerned about taking it, but I had to keep telling myself that I know my job, just don't worry about the exam itself and address it when you get there. So it was a 2-hour exam. I finished in 1 hour, and found out that I thought I had 300 questions, and it was 100 questions. And so I was hurrying, and I was speed reading through all the questions. So when I finished, they didn't have the key there. The proctor told me they would tell me afterwards. So I went back to the room, came and then went down to the reception, and I was met at the reception. They set me up is basically what they did, and the entire staff at CSDA and others were high-fiving me and congratulating me on passing the test. And it wasn't until the next day that the executive director told me that most general managers would pass it on the first go-around. Now, we have a local general manager also that is a certified district administrator, and that's Dennis Hammer from Palmdale. And I don't know if Dennis passed it on his first time or not, but I do know this, that there are now 44 certified general managers or special district administrators in the state of California, and there's in excess of 3,000 special districts. And it was a difficult test, and it's one that all the general managers that were there, and it was a general manager summit, so everybody there was a general manager, were asking me about how hard it was, how could they prepare for it and everything else. And really I told them, I said, I don't really know, because I just relied on what my knowledge base was and hoped for the best. And I passed. So
You're to be congratulated for not just passing it, but having the courage to take it.
here's the certificate. This is a temporary certificate that they issue. They'll be issuing a regular certificate for it at the annual meeting. I'll be recognized at the annual meeting, and I'm recognized at every meeting of CSDA. My name's special district administrators are highlighted. Certified administrators are highlighted, which is it's an honor. But I've got to say, in obtaining this certification, it's more working towards a goal for the district rather than for my own recognition.
We want to be certified as a district.
Correct. Yes. So part of that is to get each board member their governance certification. The general manager, I had to do the governance certification in addition to this certification. Our next step is our transparency certification. And then comes the district of distinction. And we're hopeful that we'll obtain that, and that's what I want to try to obtain for the district. So we're doing everything the way the laws say we're supposed to, being transparent in our approach to providing information and doing things the way that we're supposed to be doing.
One talks about the great water paradox, talks about reclaimed water there in San Diego, another talks about what the water's worth. If you get a chance, look at it, because I think one of the things that we lose sight of sometimes, we don't know what a water district kind of does, and this kind of hits on it. You know, reclaimed water, we're working at our plant out here on the east side here, getting more water. Steve was just talking to me now, and some of these people now starting to talk some astronomical prices to bring water to various communities. And it just talks about, you know, once upon a time, water would never have an issue. Zach made a comment to me. We were talking earlier about we may one day see water on the stock exchange, you know, a bona fide commodity moving back and forth. So if you get a chance, you know, pick up and read them. That's kind of interesting that probably 25, 30 years ago, I don't think water would have ever had this much real-time conversation about what it is. And it's kind of interesting now. And one article talks about that, and again, it's another article in the Los Angeles Times. Every day this week and last week, cover page of the Los Angeles Times talked about some kind of water concern. Big companies, small ranchers, people in general. There's a place up in Bouquet Canyon, their tank went dry, they have no more water, and it's a ranch out there. So the reason I'm bringing the water issue up, we're pretty good as a community, but you know what? It can't be a community issue. It has to be a state, a regional, a whole, everybody issue. So if you get a chance, and you know, take it with you at your leisure, read through them. It's pretty interesting information there. And thank you again, all.
People make promises of cooperation. You know, those folks that have possibly more interest in the fish than farming make promises of allowing more storage capacity to be built and so on and so forth. And then when the first rainstorms come, all bets are off. This isn't something that's going to go away. And so whether or not we go into a rainy season and we start getting lots of rain in California, we still need to have storage. We still need to prepare for these dry times and not let it just go by the by. And so this is where you as active folks writing letters to the governor and saying, you know, we don't want to have to go through this again. We need to have succinct solutions. There are solutions out there, but they've never been allowed to be built. And the Southern California folks we are dependent on imported water. And for some reason, when I've been in Northern California, they get the idea that, you know, there's a lot of squandering or something. I don't think they know that we have meters on our houses, because for years and years they didn't have meters, water meters. They had flat rates in California. And so I don't think they understand how we've been working very hard at water conservation and efficiencies and not wasting waters. But even with the most stringent conservation of water down here, we still need more storage. And that's, again, where letters to our representatives and to the governor in particular, to encourage him to build those things that are necessary to complete the job that his father started, Governor Brown, in getting the aquifer, the aqueduct built up in Southern California. It wasn't enough. There still needs to be more structures being built, so that could be most helpful. I did miss the last board meeting. My husband and I and daughter were on vacation. We collapsed down by the beach in Cabo San Lucas and didn't do much of anything. We just rested. And, but it was hotter there than here. There are places hotter than the Antelope Valley. But the pool was cool and refreshing. We could stay in front of the air conditioner and relax in the pool. So we appreciated getting that time away.
I want to congratulate Steve. You know, it's a pretty good feeling to have one of the 3,000 special districts in California. It's pretty good feeling to have one of the 44 certified general managers working for us. And that's kudos to you. Steve. You worked hard for that. I know you put a lot of hours and a lot of time and effort into getting ready for this. You know, it's true that, you know, the water situation is not just a California issue. It's the whole western part of the United States. I don't know if anybody saw on the news, but Lake Mead in Nevada is the lowest it's been in decades, and it's getting bad. And you know, they've got enough water for their deliveries this year, but next year, you know, all bets are off. So they don't know what they're going to do. But you know, I just want to take my hat off to the people of this community, because we started our conservation 2020 plan several years ago, and the people of this community have really risen to the challenge and have conserved water and are very water conscious. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you know, we got into the schools several years ago and had the art contest and putting up a billboard to reward the student with the best picture. And so we got to the kids and got them to understand water conservation, and they take it home with them. And it's been successful, and I think because of the fact that Rosamond, you know, knows all about conservation, that it's the reason we're in a position we are right now, that we're okay with water, you know, and we'll be okay. We've got water in our bank, and so I just want to take my hats off to the community and the people in this community for a job well done. And I also want to in that time of the year that kind of want to start mentioning the Rosamond Cancer Walk, Run, and Ride. It's coming up September 6th and 7th, and we are having our next planning meeting next Tuesday at 6 o'clock here. So anybody that wants to come out and be a part of it and help us put this thing together, I really appreciate your help. And it's going to be it's our second annual event, and it's going to be bigger than last year. And I got the community to thank for that, and we got a lot of work to do, and we can use all the help we can get.
Documentation, development of board governance guidelines, social media and local government, strategy of integrated planning, and mid-year legislative update. The reason I focus on these is to stay abreast of the legal requirements that in the ever-changing world of employee-employer relations, and just having a good understanding of social media and how we use it in local government, and the strategy for the integrated planning of how you operate your district, not only for today but for long-term planning issues. Secondly, as was already spoken about, is the testing, and you're already aware of that. And as you might be aware now, that the RCSC crew did a marvelous job at moving the temporary skate park and the United Street Park playground equipment, and relocating the temporary skate park to another temporary site, which is namely the concrete slab behind the community building on Diamond Street. Currently, as reported by Jill, that the small implements aren't there, but the big ramps are there right now. The crew apparently has been extremely busy and hasn't gotten the other implements over there, but they intended to get them today, or yesterday, today, or by the end of the week. So hopefully they'll get over there tomorrow. And although it's smaller, it's a place for them to go, continue to go until we can get the other park built.
Before you move on, are they going to be securely bolted to the concrete in that location?
They aren't right now. I'm not sure what John has planned on those.
Because they moved them around in other locations. they're at the site, behind the building, I would certainly recommend that somehow they secure them.
We were planning on putting a fence behind it and doing things like that, so I'm sure John has other plans to secure it. The site is a lot smaller, so their reasons for moving it aren't the same as they would have been at the bigger site. So they're kind of limited as to how they might be able to utilize it. The new Chrome 6 maximum contamination level went into effect July 1st, which means that we, the RCSD, will have to comply with the new standard. We'll be looking at options to determine whether or not we should directly mitigate the cost, and some of those figures are staggering. Just the equipment to mitigate can exceed $10 million easily, and our operations costs annually are in the $300,000 to $500,000 a year range. So it's going to be significant if we have to go that route. We have other options. We could blend water with AVAC water, but we can't rely on AVAC water totally, because if they get a zero allocation like almost happened to them this time, we won't be able to blend it, and we'll be sending contaminated water under the new MCL to our customers that had to take those samples already, so we know what they contain. I'm having discussions about wells potentially without contamination of chromium or arsenic. That if we have to go that route, we may have to put in a line to tie into our system. Might be the cheapest way for us to mitigate this issue. A heck of a lot cheaper, I'm thinking, than buying the equipment for direct mitigation. Now, it might behoove us, once we find a good water supply, in the event that we do secure one, also look at a backup and mitigate at least one of our biggest well producers, just in case. Because if we have that mitigated and we have a clean, potable well that's producing good water, both of them will serve us for quite some time in the future. So we're looking at that. The arsenic consolidation of the 10 water companies, the engineering phase has been amended to assist us in the Chrome 6 issue. So they're going to assist us in that grant to find that location. If we have to drill a test well, we won't have to come out of pocket for that. So that's real good news, because the consolidated companies that we're bringing into the system, they need clean, fresh water also, and the state recognized that. So we had an amendment. We meet with CDPH tomorrow, along with GEI Representative Mark Rosamond, and presumably to finalize that amendment. Our auditors have been in the district in the first week of July, as they are each and every year, going over our financials once again. And they have taken a lot of information back with them, and they will be compiling that information and asking for clarification on various issues, I'm sure. And we'll be back in the first week of September for final meeting, and then compiling a final response to that. So those are some of the things that has been going on. I might advise this board that I have requested the grand jury to come into this district and do another audit of the district. And I request that for transparency reasons, to make sure that there's no hocus pocus going on, and if we're above board and doing everything the way we're supposed to be doing it, contrary to popular belief. And that's one way of getting a third-party outside entity to come in and take a look at your books and your operation, how you're doing. So they're right in the middle of seating a new grand jury, and I think they're a couple weeks away from coming on board because they're in a training phase right now. And as soon as they finish their training phase, they'll probably be getting the assignment. We'll probably be hearing something in the next couple weeks to a month. We won't have to spend that kind of money and impact our ratepayers at all. So we're working hard on that, and hopefully I can bring back to this board at least by the next meeting a negotiation that will have to be done in closed session, but nevertheless a contract negotiation that will explain everything.
Steve, you spent a few minutes explaining how the tests are taken and how many times you actually have to fail before you would be in violation.
The tests are taken quarterly. You have to fail 3 quarters to be in violation. We will probably be given a grace period for about 1.5 years to get into compliance. That's what they did with the arsenic. So everybody is thinking that that's probably what they're going to do with the chromium also. But one of the things that are occurring in the state, the California Department of Public Health and State Department of Water Resources are merging. So with that merging, we have no idea if they're going to have staff to do anything, or if they're going to be relieved of some duties and have everybody available to march on the chromium issues. So it could be anywhere from 1 year to 1.5 years before they really start finding us for being out of compliance.
But it's 3 consecutive quarters in a row.
Right.
Which you're in violation once it's set.
And it is the standard today. So in our next quarter testing, if we're in violation, that'll be 1. Not a totally.
That's why we were going to start adding more to that.
And see, that's a good point, because it brings up the question, do you deplete your savings account for one issue, or do you finance it and pay the debt service, which is affordable over time, so you don't deplete all your reserves, because that's not the only catastrophe that we're going to face. If we continue into the drought, we've got other issues to contend with.
By water.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of things to look at the same time and start preparing for, because we have no idea if we're going to have another rainstorm anytime soon.
But you know the advantage we do have is that when this issue first came up, I think because you sat on that one committee, we kind of knew it was coming before it was coming. And I think that gave us a little bit of heads up, and we've already started looking at some possible remedies. So I think Twin Falls, we look at the fact, we can't change the fact that it's here. But since we have a little bit more lead time, we've already been looking at some possible remedies for this here, and I think that puts us not in a great position, but a little bit better position. Because I keep thinking at some point, you may have to wind up, if these numbers hold, if you think about all the small water agencies around us, no more in north from here, you're looking at consolidation and takeover, because you start thinking about some of the smaller communities. We're talking 10 million for us, and that number even trickles down based on where they're pumping from. That could be disastrous for a region.
It could be disastrous, and if there was a consolidation, it would be the biggest mistake the state ever pulled, because they don't have the staff to manage what we manage, like we manage it daily. That's why special districts exist to begin with. If the state gets their hands on it, it's going to be the worst thing that you can think of. Today, the people could come here and argue about what we do, They have our voices, they see our faces, they hear our explanations, and they are able to voice their opinions. Tomorrow, if the state gets involved, where do they go? Who do they argue to?
Do you think it's headed that way?
Well, regionalization is already that way through the LAFCO process that is garnering more and more and more land use decision making, which used to be left up to individual boards of supervisors in a county or city councils within a city. So that scares me also.